You're listening to the AFTERBUZZ TV network, now the largest new media platform on the web, and your #1 source for after-show entertainment.
Very good, Keith Johnson.
The AFTERBUZZ Studios in Los Angeles, California, presented by Maria Menounos and Bing.com, and streaming live thanks to Akamai Technologies. This is AFTERBUZZ TV's Arrested Development After Show. We'll break down tonight's episode and get you all the latest news and gossip. And now, another post-game wrap-up show for your favorite TV show. It's AFTERBUZZ TV's Arrested Development After Show.
Hello everyone, Bing is for doing, and we are here doing Arrested Development for AFTERBUZZ. My name is Nando Velasquez, and right next to me is Alina Akbar. Say hi.
Hi, Alina Akram.
Oh my God!
But I'm sure there's an Alina Akbar out there somewhere.
There probably is.
There's a Dove bar.
But you know what? I bet you're not as good looking as you are, though.
Thank you. That made up for it.
You'd be better. And the two lovely people across from me, I'm just going to start by calling you lovely before I mess up your name.
I'm Roxy Striar. I'm Cathy.
And you're not, I was going to say, you're not even giving me a chance here to mess it up, but that's good.
Cathy.
Thank you. Cathy, Kelley, and Roxy Striar.
Good.
So nice to see. Thank you very much. It's been a long day.
Yes.
It's so nice to see all of you here. So nice for you guys to be tuning in as we talk about episode 10, which is also called The Queen Bee. This is the first episode that we see that features our favorite seal, Lucille. Sorry, I couldn't help that one. That was very punny. Lucille won, unless you're in austerity, and then she's Lucille 2.
Speaking of punny, so many puns this episode.
So many puns. Right. Yes. And this was a really good episode. Do you guys think?
I loved it. I love Lucille in all of her inappropriateness, so it was great.
Especially because it's really Lucille, and I feel like anytime you get Lucille, you get Buster. So
that's exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say the same thing. I mean, I really want to see a Buster episode.
Right.
But you know, the next best thing is to have Lucille, because you know Buster's gonna be on form for this kind of episode.
Right.
So absolutely. So let's get started with this one. Because it started out from a really funny place, actually. I gotta admit, this new TV show idea, which I think they should definitely do a spin-off and do this on the what is it? The Real
Agent Prison Housewives
of Orange County White Collar Prison.
The Real Agent Prison Housewives of the Orange County White Collar Prison System, or RAPHOTOCWCPS. No, I just did
Enye.
You getting Latin in there? You getting Latin in there?
Yeah.
With an Enye. All right, very good. So all I know is that one of them was played by Bobby Lee. One of them was actually a guy.
Yeah.
From Mad TV. So I love that.
With the wig.
But these people were hilarious. They're really funny.
Stabbing people with noodle knives, and you're gonna get some noodles in your belly. I love that.
My favorite is just the racism on the show with that RuPaul. I can't even say it. They're trying to say loophole.
RuPaul.
That's really hard to say.
What sound does a Chinese camera make? Crick.
Oh God!
Oh. You should write for the show. I know.
There goes our ratings.
Really
there goes our ratings.
So one of the things, I don't know if you guys noticed, but Lucille's number is actually 07734, which, if you're a calculator nerd, you know that upside down, that's hello, Anyang.
I noticed that. I actually did notice that. Anyang. That's a great little callback to that. And hopefully we'll see Anyan soon. He's the one Asian that we haven't seen really yet, except for that one quick clip.
I don't like him.
You don't like him?
No.
Even though he's going to plot revenge on the Blues?
That's why I don't like him.
Oh, okay.
I'm rooting for the Blues.
Well,
no, I'm rooting for Anyan.
I'm rooting for the Blues, but I want to see Anyan stir up some trouble. What about you, Alina?
I want to see him. I love the Asians on the show, and tonight wasn't an exception.
Tonight was not an exception.
No, not at all.
Okay, so let's see. So we have the Jade Dragon Triad, and I guess we'll go back in time pretty much. So let's talk about what leads up to her being in prison. And actually, you know what? There was one thing I did want to bring up about Jade Action. When they showed their names, like Miss O and Olive and all that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, when they showed Lindsay, they have a Chinese character next to the name. The Chinese character...
Lindsay, you mean
not
Lucille.
Lucille. The Chinese character for Lucille, sorry, I'm totally messing up names today. The Chinese character for Lucille looked exactly like Lucille Like
Oh,
they
yeah.
actually, yeah, if you
Lou.
freeze it, yeah, if you freeze it, it actually looks like an old white woman. They did a really good
Clever.
job doing that.
Yeah.
But anyway, so let's get,
So,
yeah.
oh, I was just gonna say, I love how they said that the country club prison became popular after Enron.
Oh, yeah.
It's great.
Great
Nice.
references.
You gotta love all the references that they have snuck in there, and I loved also Lucille's pun on if they start trouble with her, they're gonna end up having an unfortunate cookie, or it'll be an unfortunate cookie. So
And just every time she laughs at herself afterwards, that's the best part of
I
the
made
pun.
a pun. And there are a couple things that I just paused on because I loved. I mean, you always pause when there's something written in Arrested Development, and there were so many things at the Orange County
When you say
Correctional
you, who
Facility.
are you talking to? Like the super freak fans like us?
Yes.
You. Everyone always pauses.
I always pause. I think it's hilarious because there are so many things. Like there's a brochure that they give Lucille when she walks in, and it's got a thing that says "light" on the front, LITE. It's like the ladies' internment something enclave, and I don't know. There's
Yeah.
so many things like that.
well, it's a double entendre.
intern.
Light is in a light prison, and light for the initials. So yeah.
right.
I'm glad you caught that. I didn't see what the initials stood for. I just saw they put light in there.
I paused everything.
You pause everything.
Very thorough,
That makes a
Cathy
half-hour
Kelley.
episode turn into a 3-hour episode.
Exactly.
It's like
But
pause,
it's worth
pause,
it.
pause.
It's worth it.
No, it totally is worth it. No, I agree. I try and do it as much as possible too. So anyway, let's backtrack a little bit. Let's because that's where the show pretty much goes from the beginning with the Jade Dragon Triad to what got Lucille in prison in the first place. So we see from the end of season 3 finally what happens to Lucille and how she ends up. Why she ends up going to prison.
all over the bird. All over trying to flip the bird.
Yeah, and why she turned back the boat, and the real reason why she turned back the boat.
But another bird reference to your birds and the bees theory.
Yes.
Yes, well, there was actually a lot of ostrich references. Well, a couple of ostrich references. I'm starting to talk like I'm Chinese. Ostrich references.
Yeah, there was that one where she almost started crying and she said, the
Yes.
last time I cried was when the ostrich...
And then
he cuts it off.
yeah. And then there was also there was an ostrich in Cinco de Quattro at the end. But we're getting ahead of ourselves
Right.
here. So let's look back. So obviously, what I love about this episode too is Lucille versus Lucille 2. There's a lot of fighting going on. That Lucille 2 is the reason why Lucille turns back, because they're having their own little fight with words.
I loved how they just go back and forth, and they said, what did they call it? It's passive-aggressive anger, but then it gets less passive as time goes
Oh, I
on.
love
No,
that
we're not even at
line.
the trial yet, though. That's
I
at the
know.
trial. This we're talking about on
This
the
is
boat.
early on,
Like, I
yeah.
see your crow's feet. Oh, well, how could you see me?
Yeah.
Like the whole thing there.
Absolutely, yeah, exactly. I'll give you a bird, and that's when
Yeah.
she hung up. And Lucille was so mad that she didn't
You
think
turned.
she heard of it. She turned around, right?
She wouldn't have been caught had she just kept going.
Yeah.
And then I loved John Beard's him on the news, and it said "pursed lips sink ships."
Great.
Yeah.
Wow. Again with your pause and your good
I
catch.
didn't even have to
No, that
pause
wasn't a
for that one.
pause.
Yeah.
That was him speaking it.
Yeah.
That was a cute
Oh.
little line there with that one.
You gotta watch this 4 times.
Yes.
Absolutely. So anyway, so now we know why Lucille really turned back. It wasn't for any family sacrifice or anything at all. It was just to get a one-upmanship battle with Lucille too, which failed. So of course she's about to be arrested, and her one person, the person that she relies on the most, it obviously is
Buster, her key
Buster.
witness.
Exactly.
Star witness.
And so she comes up with an alibi, a perfect alibi for Buster, that she came back to rescue him.
Because he fell in.
Yes. And that wink, yeah. If you're not watching us streaming right now on our new AfterBuzz TV thing,
It's an
Cathy
ugly,
just-
Okay,
ugly
wait.
wink.
Hold on. While you're there, don't just throw out our new AfterBuzz TV thing. We have a new website. It's amazing. You have to go there. If you're not listening just on iTunes, you go to our AfterBuzz TV website, AfterBuzzTV.com, which people have been working their butts off here to get on for you guys, and it's amazing. So check it out.
okay. So thank you for doing that a little more justice than me.
I just figured if you were gonna throw me the transition, I was gonna run with it.
No,
you know?
cool. But Cathy can't hold that face forever. I was just trying to get people to tune into that face to watch her attempted Lucille wink. So, which is just really
Winking's so creepy.
one eye closed, one eye open while you're staring at somebody. So,
I'm gonna try that next time.
Usually with a glass of alcohol.
you know,
Yes.
it's like
But I don't have an alcohol problem. I'm just pretending,
Yeah.
right?
That's like the
great.
equivalent. You know what? It's the equivalent of like Spock doing the Vulcan thing, because it's like you have to hold this really awkward position, but this time it's with your face, with one eye open, one eye closed, like normal. It's weird. I don't know. It just made a really nerdy reference. I couldn't help it.
That was good.
Well, thank you.
We appreciate it.
I tried it. Okay, it worked. So Buster is supposed to do this alibi, and Buster totally
Messes it up.
Yeah, well, he
I don't know. I thought he was pretty good when he was rehearsing.
Well, before when she's at the police station and she says, well, that is my alibi right there. Buster couldn't swim, so I turned the boat around to go get him. And then he's like, no, you turned the boat around to flee the whatever.
And then you winked. He calls her out.
Or you glared. No, you glared. And that's what he said afterwards.
And as they both discover,
Buster.
they're two hot messes.
Yes.
Yes. Well, that's from. You know what I loved about this too? It was very the relationship with Buster and Lucille also was I was gonna say 2, but I meant Lucille 1. Also, like Buster just got to fight back a lot.
Lucille as well.
Yeah.
Lucille as well. Perhaps. Same. No, sorry. That's later on. Same. So anyway, I'm getting way ahead of myself here. So I love Buster. Buster's fighting back for once. In this episode, usually you see him always failing miserably at trying to fight back.
Passive
This is
aggressive.
his version of the wink.
Yes. Well, the stimmy. When he wants stimmy.
And she's like, what are you trying to do?
I love. Give me some stimming. He's rubbing all over him. He's like trying to do stimming
Fighting
and
back,
everything.
you know?
Yeah, I love Buster.
weird.
I love Buster fighting back. I love Buster getting some balls, so to speak. In this episode, he definitely got to see Tony Hale Buster do some really good work. I thought so. What did you guys think? Anything else around there, or any other lines I'm missing?
I wanted to see more Buster. He's so good.
I'm sure we'll get a Buster episode.
I
Isn't
hope
that
so.
coming up soon?
There has to be.
I haven't looked ahead, but I have noticed someone saying there is a Buster episode closer to
Good.
the end. So I'm really grateful for
Yay.
that.
And at this point, we all have not looked ahead. We're all on the same page now. So
Yes.
this is exciting and new for us.
We have watched one more episode because we're going to do one more recap after.
We have watched
this.
one more episode because we're doing one more recap after this for those of you who are tuning in live tonight, Wednesday night, and not just getting us later on iTunes.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
yeah, absolutely. So,
So-
we'll try and not spoiler that.
Yeah.
We'll try and keep this as individual as possible.
Before we get into the trial, I think the trial separation pun was probably my favorite of the episode. Since I'm going to trial, we should probably try out our separation.
It's only a trial separation.
Yeah.
And then she calls herself out. And another thing I wanted to mention just with the Buster was when he's talking about it and she says, are you threatening yourself? That's such an amazing line.
Maybe your key witness won't show up. Something will happen to him.
Yeah, exactly. It was just too funny. It was too funny to let go. So.
No, and it was great. And again, Buster just trying to be really smooth and such. He's
This is
like,
smooth.
smooth with the hook.
Yes.
Putting his hook things in the Bible. You're gonna tear the Bible in half. I love that too.
Yeah.
So.
Also, before we get into the trial, I just want to mention that our creators, Marie Menounos and Kevin Undergaro, have an amazing movie out right now. It's called The Adventures of Serial Buddies. You can find it on iTunes while you're there listening to awesome AfterBuzz TV shows. But there's an all-star cast from Henry Winkler to Maria Menounos herself.
What kind of movie is it, Cathy Kelley?
It is a funny one. That's what it is.
Wow, that
description.
sounded.
Comedy.
It was funny, very funny. Yeah, it's really funny.
It's a punny movie.
It's a punny movie.
It's like Dumb and Dumber meets Dexter.
Yes, it is. So
No, it is hilarious. You should absolutely go download it.
If you have
We
not
watch
seen
every
it,
night.
if you have not seen it from all the other plugs that we've done yet, this is the time you get to see it.
Yes.
Just download it now because it's really, really funny. It's really good, and it also benefits us here directly. If
Indirectly.
You,
Support
indirectly.
AfterBuzz.
Yes, by
and
supporting.
directly.
You guys downloaded it so much that you moved us from Studio B to Studio A.
What?
We're
That's
moving
not what
on
actually happened. Moving on up.
Moving on up.
to the north.
Studio A.
Okay, so yes.
Captain.
So tune in, So tune in to Adventures in Serial Buddies. It's on iTunes and
Do it.
do it. And then while you're there, also give us a rating for Arrested Development if you've subscribed, and write some really nice stuff about us if you like us. Hopefully
Yes.
you do, and tell a friend.
How many
Perfect.
stars does a general have? 5?
5-star general. Yeah, they're different generals, but there's
Oh, okay.
you call them a 5-star general, the highest
Well,
point.
we want those.
We want those.
We want to be
We want the
general.
same stars that a 5-star general has. Got it.
Anyway, okay, so another thing before the trial, Something I thought was hysterical was all of the sticky notes that people had placed on all of Lucille One's
so
stuff.
funny.
And the fact that they didn't do it because of the trial, but they did it actually when she had a sunspot years before and was going to get it checked out. Like, they're so quick to write her off. The whole family.
I love that she picks up the ashtray that obviously George Michael made in like some arts and crafts class growing up, and she turns it over and sees his signature on it and thinks he was calling dibs on it. And she goes, "Oh, and he's supposed to be the nice one."
Right.
She puts it down. I really love that, and I love how that comes back later on in the episode, which we'll get into.
Yeah.
But how everyone keeps claiming her possessions, which I think's awesome. So So anyway, we've also finally get to see, since we're finally seeing Lucille, we already know why the family's not at the trial. We know why every single person didn't make the trial at all from previous episodes.
We don't know why Maybe didn't make the trial.
That was going to be I don't know.
I guess she's the one. Yeah, she's the one missing out of all of them. But we assume it's going to be something really good.
doing with lifetime achievement of something. Not actually receiving the award, but I'm sure she's working.
Do we know why George Michael didn't either? Just because he's mad at...
He's busy with face block, I'm sure.
Yeah, I guess so. Well, we don't have their exact reason
So the
yet,
kids,
perhaps.
we don't know.
We'll eventually get a George Michael episode as well, right?
Yeah, I believe we are.
So.
Yeah, especially, well, we'll
We
say
need
that for
one.
next. We'll say that for next episode.
Yes.
But anyway, so yeah, spoiler free. So anyway, I did love the battle again. You said it, passive aggressive battle.
Lucille too was the only one that showed up for her trial, and I love how Lucille 1 was the one who questioned the witness because she didn't trust her own lawyer.
I know. Here were some of the best lines from that. That she was the punniest things. That she was the largest shareholder. That it was her oldest friend. Pre-surgery chin and pre-breakfast drink. I loved all of those.
Oh, yeah.
So great. Back and forth, just like the wittiest, going at it.
And of course, her character witness made her character just look so flawed.
Well, she made her character come out. That is, like, literally was her character.
And the entire time, Henry Winkler's character is just doing crossword puzzles.
Oh, he's just going, that's a treasure chest. He's really just drawing a treasure chest from some kid meal he got over at the restaurant. That's really, the pirate hat kid meal type thing.
It's one of those like Burger King type things where you put the hat on your head, you take it off. And
there are little games on it. Exactly. I love that.
Also, while Lucille was awaiting the verdict, they kept her on ice in the freezer. That was great.
I thought that was really good. I love how that not only did they keep her on ice, but they had to have like one of the waitresses like coming in pretty much say, "Oh yeah, you're guilty."
Yeah.
So so Lucille goes to prison. She gets 3 to 5 years, and she has George visit her. And I love this line too. She gets she's getting 3 to 5 years, and it's the best years where you can have sex and not worry about getting pregnant. I don't know. I love that one for some reason. But yeah. So anyway, so George is visiting, and I guess George. They're coming up with their plan a little bit more. You already mentioned a trial separation, which I thought was really, really funny. That was a little bit earlier. And this is all about the plan again, about the wall. And also we see George and Michael with their 4-favor plan, where it gets really confusing, but it's just obviously going to be, it seems to be a running joke now, where every time someone wants something,
they want something in return.
They want something in return.
I'll do that if you do this for me.
Yeah, exactly.
And Lucille even makes a reference to that tonight. She's like, "Oh, I've heard that's been going around," as if she was one of the audience members watching. So that was funny.
And of course, a lot of it's tied into Michael getting the rights for his Arrested Development movie by getting the family rights, which is another little joke there.
It always involves some kind of contract.
It always involves some little contract, exactly. And I think that especially when later on in the episode when Michael and Lucille are reading their contracts, that's like the heightened version of them just going through everything because they so don't trust each other.
25 minutes later.
25 minutes.
Yeah, it's so
Glad
obvious.
to do it for you. Yeah.
Yeah, so obvious they don't trust each other. So you got to love that. What I do love also is from talking to George, they come up with the plan with the Jade Dragon Triad. First of all, George introduces China Garden, which of course Lucille thinks is a restaurant.
Yes.
Typical, which that's happened before, that joke already, but it's still great to hear. And he puts her pretty much in bed with the Jade Dragon Triad. So that's where we see all that. And then from there, we bring back one of the funniest bits from an earlier episode. And they showed a little bit of it now, this episode too, with the smoking,
Cigarettes.
the cigarette
yes.
smoking, and
Roxy's
Buster.
favorite.
Yes.
I just had to look away again. It's just too hard to stomach.
Isn't that what she bribed them with? Cigarettes? Everybody has their price?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because, again, another racist.
I was confused that why they weren't able to go over to the doors, but other inmates were able to go over to the doors.
Yeah, it's just
Yeah.
a running joke on what happened with Buster, because Buster was able to go to the window before.
Right. I agree. It was confusing. I wish it had been the prison guards or
Yeah.
something. Yeah, it was kind of weird.
It might have been.
But they had the
No,
numbers
'cause they had
on.
They
numbers.
still
Yeah.
had numbers? Okay.
I love that even the ones that were breathing directly into their or out of their mouths couldn't get to the windows. It was like a relay race. It was
Yeah.
like everybody in the room was involved in some kind of assembly line to
Yes.
get the cigarette smoke outside. So
I think what they were saying, what I came to terms with for that was that they couldn't smoke inside and they didn't want to go outside. Like they could have cigarettes outside.
they're too
but-
powerful to
But
just
so that
walk.
they didn't, you know what I mean? So they just had people doing it for them.
A
I
RuPaul.
see.
It was a RuPaul.
It was a RuPaul. Well, you know what? They're busy playing games, and they don't want to have to get up and get away from their games because,
Yes.
after all, they don't want to get. They're the mob bosses.
Yeah, the Jade Dragon.
And all
Triad.
mob bosses get angry when their plans don't go according to
Oh, yeah.
how they want
Oh,
them.
Should have been called Asian Mob Wives instead of Asian Real Housewives.
That's true too. Well, before we get to that, I just want to bring up, because I thought this was an awesome line, and I feel like it's a line that probably got forgotten when the Jade Dragon Triad decide to agree to help out the building of the wall. Lucille tells George that Olive Garden's going to give them unlimited bread, which I think's hilarious.
China Garden and Olive Garden.
Olive Garden's
yeah.
going to give them unlimited bread. Yes, exactly. So they'll be rich in the process of getting all this money.
Yes.
And then later on, when they do get into a fight, Olive Garden says, "You can't have bread for nothing. You have to pay the bills sometime." So so I just loved
Shout out
that.
to Olive Garden.
Shout out to Olive Garden, totally. But anyway, yes. So of course Lucille, just the way Lucille always is, eventually starts rubbing people the wrong way, and starts causing all sorts of trouble within the gang.
Noodle fights, all sorts. I loved when she took the water and poured it on the sharp noodles, and it turned into sauce.
And Bobby Lee just throws it at her.
Yeah.
And then it was like a sugar packet. Is that what it was?
No, it's the spices that they put in the ramen packet.
Yeah.
Oh, that's what it was. The
Like
spices.
powder you put on your
Yeah.
noodles. Yeah.
That was that was the world's worst prison fight ever. That's
What
such
do you
a
mean
horrible.
best prison fight ever?
Okay, maybe best. It
Food
depends.
fight.
You and I look at different things when we look at prison fights, apparently.
That was the deadliest food fight. How about that?
Deadliest
Yes.
food fight?
Yeah,
Okay,
that's a
there
good
we
way to
go.
put it.
Totally. So, again, really, really awesome, brilliant stuff. And Lucille obviously starts to fear that maybe her life's in danger. I guess it was the noodle knife that did it. And starts to worry, trying to figure out a plan on how to get out of there. Talks to Job, asks for someone with, is there someone in half a brain that can help me? Because she's obviously having problems even, communicating with Job about what he's supposed to do with this whole wall thing and everything. And of course he says, "Oh, well, I don't know about half a brain, but Tobias is with me, and he's working over at Austerity." And all of a sudden, brainstorm.
Yes.
She decides to go to Austerity. Oh, and let's not forget that, of course, that she also notices all of her possessions in prison are already being labeled
Yes.
by the Triad.
And we see Joe pick up the phone and say, "Well, that was fast," and we don't know why yet, and that he obviously doesn't think it's Lucille.
Good
Just throwing
point.
that in there.
Good point. There's a little something that we'll discover about next episode,
Right.
spoiler free. And so Lucille ends up going to Austerity.
Where Tobias is the new therapist.
Yes, the Theralist.
Theralist.
And it just so happens at the same time that Tobias is rewriting his musical and looking for a villain called Lucia.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. But
Head scratcher.
And his very moral. His moral compass is straight. He does not want to
that's the only thing that's straight
get bought
with him.
off. He doesn't want to get bought off with a new car in his driveway. He thinks that Lucille should put in the time into a rehab.
Well, because the only reason why Lucille goes to Austerity is because she figured she could hoodwink him into just signing a release for her to go.
And
Right.
she compliments him by telling him he looks very hetero.
He looks very hetero, and he compliments her back by saying, "So do you. You look hetero as well." So,
But then she eventually takes it back.
Yeah, she says you look as swishy as Ryan Seacrest.
and of course he says, "Well, Ryan Seacrest is straight."
and I'm 40.
And I'm 40. Totally. Love the interaction with them. I also love that when she refuses to talk, he says, he comes up to her and he does the pose, the Bob Fosse pose that is directly in the background. And I guess she has more or less the Betty Ford pose in the picture next to it. So they're totally mirroring.
By the way, I just tweeted out today a link that I found on Entertainment Weekly, which is a quiz called Lucille Quotes or Kanye West Lyrics.
Yes.
And it is absolutely hilarious. There are 14 different ones, and it goes
God.
on the
I need
list
to take
of,
that quiz.
Yeah. So
Sounds brilliant.
Yeah.
I need to see that also. I just really wanted there to be a Good Will Hunting reference in this moment when there was like, you know, trying to get her to talk and she's not talking. I thought that would have been with the, like maybe the painting in the background of the same one that they had in Goodwill. You know what I'm talking about? That color by number painting or something.
there was a moment when he tried to get something out of her, and did you notice that he goes and crouches next to her in his, both of his hands, and then the posters in the background are an old lady looking very angry, and then a guy with his hand.
Well, then that's what I was talking about. The poster of Tobias that he was mirroring was a Bob Fosse poster, and then the poster that I guess that she was mirroring was a Betty Ford type poster. Although she was smiling in the poster and Lucille wasn't. That was the only difference. But they had the same like outfit practically, so it was a really perfect mirror. So yeah, I definitely like that. Yeah, so anyway, you know, something that was brought up too, and I wrote it down here, is well, you know what, I guess this has to do more with the musical. So you already led to it, which is at the same time that Lucille is there, Tobias is working on his Fantastic Four the musical with Argyle, and they realize that they have no villain, that the Fantastic Four has to fight somebody, otherwise it's just the sharks with no jets, which I love that line too. West Side Story.
What was it that he said to Lucille that almost got her to cry? Because it was while he was writing the musical.
That she was the villain.
That she was the villain.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's what it was.
That's how she...
Can I just say, when we get there, the song that she wrote would have been the best song in the musical. It was brilliant. Oh my God. Like, I need that song to play on my iTunes.
It was amazing.
Brilliant. So good.
No, and she plays it really, really well.
And who knew she had such a nice little body, and did you see her
Oh my
tap dancing?
God. When she was dancing, I was like, damn,
Well,
girl.
because she used to tap dance for the Army. Remember?
Oh, yeah, and the USO, right? Yeah, she used to do that too. So she really gets into character. She really does. So
and doesn't miss a step.
That's a pun? Is that a pun?
Although Debris does.
Debris does. So, yeah, so of course, so Lucille ends up becoming the villain. Also interesting, I wanted to bring this up because I don't want to forget it. They mentioned Gangi a couple of times throughout the episode. Apparently Gangi is a movie. So, and I think they said at one point Shirley MacLaine, it was a monster. Shirley MacLaine played in Gangi 4. So we did see Gangi on that check, under the memo section for the check, when we thought that she was writing to maybe for a facelift.
And it said Gangi 4.
And then there was a colon, and then said, I think, facelift. So we're...
Maybe it was a movie that maybe was produced.
Exactly.
Perhaps it was a movie that maybe was
maybe was producing a movie, maybe? Is that what you're saying? No. Maybe, perhaps she was producing a movie. Yeah, so I'm thinking that the Gangi 4 on that check has to do with a movie. So, so there goes, I mean, we don't know 100% yet. They haven't answered that yet, but that's where that's where it's leading to right now with that. So I think that mystery is almost solved. Maybe she's
remaking Gangi 4.
Exactly. So maybe that perhaps that is almost solved. Maybe.
But we knew a few episodes back, we predicted that there was no way that was 4 an absolute maybe. But
whenever things look really, really obvious, you know, there's a little swerve.
I saw online today, at Imagine Entertainment, the boxes for movies that were going into production and movies that weren't. Someone had done a still of it, and it was active development, and instead of Arrested Development, it said not yet in not going to be in production anymore development or something.
Oh yeah.
I thought that was great.
That's pretty good. Yeah, I do remember seeing that one very briefly, but I didn't really I didn't think, because Arrested Development's not a movie term, so I guess I didn't hit it, but that's actually really an awesome point. I didn't think about that. So
that was several episodes ago, but
still love the reference.
Still gotta love that. So also we see Oscar calling Austerity to look for Lucille too, because he's obviously having some kind of affair with Lucille too, and he accidentally gets Lucille 1 because on Austerity, Lucille 1 is Lucille 2.
This is where it gets really confusing to talk about, because once you start calling Lucille 2, Lucille 1, now we're screwed here at AfterBuzz. It's just like maybe and perhaps. But when he said that, I was like, oh no.
But he didn't really care which Lucille he was getting at the end of the day.
No,
he's a
he
man
just wanted
He's got a lot of testosterone for some reason.
But I love what she says, real business, and he changes from panties to saying underwear because that's talking about real business.
And he gets all serious.
I did love he went from really horny, no, real business. Oh, I would like to take off. It was just like a very legal way of saying, I want to have phone sex with you.
Right.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So they discuss their plan to escape. I guess.
Which will end up in Cinco de Mayo. Before we get to Cinco de Cuatro, excuse me. Before we get to Cinco de Cuatro, we got to talk about Michael because we definitely get to see a little bit of Michael talking. He finally goes to visit Lucille so that they could do the contract signing, so he could sign her in the movie and get her rights in the movie, and she can get him to not be to alleviate him from any part of the business, so he doesn't get in trouble. He can run the business without getting worried about getting arrested. And they start talking about Rebel and the fact that that we find out that Michael seems to have figured out who the other man Rebel is dating.
He finds.
Well, Lucille does some instigating. I don't think if he's figured it out
I think
yet.
he kind of thought that, but Lucille just wants to turn both brothers against each other. So Michael ends up going over to Rebel's place. We see Lem, and
We
meet Lem,
then he goes into the fridge. He's trying to
bribe Lem
with a Dove bar, but obviously it's not a Dove bar.
Because let's be real, what kind of Dove bar do you keep in a brown paper bag?
brown
that
paper
says
bag.
Dove, parentheses, bar.
And we always saw, like, in seasons 1, 2, and 3, whenever Job had an animal, it would always go in a brown paper bag in the freezer.
Yeah.
Right.
At
And
some
we
point.
hear Lem tell him that the other guy is tall, handsome, and looks like him.
A little bit older, a couple years older.
A couple years older and looks like him. Yeah, exactly. So we get all these little clues.
Yes.
As you girls kept telling me throughout these episodes that it's pretty apparent that when Job says he's dating someone, he's seeing someone famous, that he's talking about Rebel.
Yeah.
So now
Harris.
Michael.
Especially
Now,
because we already saw them kiss.
yes,
Yes.
exactly. So even though I didn't say that, just want to make that on record. I
And
didn't say that.
Lucille
you
points
told me.
out
Yeah.
that George Maharis, well, the first name is George, and your brother,
Yes.
George.
But where does this Maharis come from?
I know. I didn't even know George was his first name.
Well, we'll probably have to
We'll
figure
find out. I think we'll find out in the
G.O.B.
future.
GOB stands for George Oscar Bluth.
yeah.
Named after both brothers. Yeah, exactly.
See, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think it's not something that's really obvious. They mentioned it very briefly, but it's like in season 1, but they never brought it up again. So, anyway, so, yeah, so we also get to see Jean Parmesan pop up all of a sudden. And one of my favorite, this has become one of my favorite bits. I hate to say this, it might be racist.
I know.
But the fact that every time you see a black person, they're mistaken for somebody else. So I love the fact that Lucille thought, yeah, Lucille.
And her
Black guy.
screech was so funny too. It was so great.
She's amazing.
I just love that every single African American in this season is mistaken for somebody else at some point.
Yes.
Anyway, so Michael goes on a little bit of a quest to figure out what's going on with Rebel, with Jean Parmesan, and they're following Job. And we end up going, we're going to catch them later. We're going to see more about that in the next episode that we know about, but we're going to keep this spoiler free. And instead, we're going to go on to Cinco de Mayo, because a lot of stuff happened over at Cinco de Mayo. It seems like all the episodes since the past 2 or 3 seem to end with, I keep saying Cinco de Mayo, let's get it right. It's Cinco de Cuatro.
Right.
Let's get the right one right. So, yeah, so a lot happens again in this one.
Well, we see that Marky Bark to start gets on. We find out that's
Marky
Oscar,
Mark to start?
gets on Oscar's idling boat, which was interesting to me because we didn't know whose boat it was
Yeah.
when
So
we
now
saw
we know
him home.
Oscar set it
So
up.
now we know that Oscar, well, I don't think on purpose. I don't think he was trying to help him, but we just know that Oscar had a boat there that he left idling because he was
Gonna
running
run away.
Right.
Exactly.
So maybe there will be some repercussion there of Marky stealing Oscar's boat.
Yes.
We
absolutely.
also see Oscar and Lucille get together and break up just like that.
Well, Oscar, well, George and Lucille also, because
Yes.
Lucille asked George.
Wasn't it Oscar?
It was both of them.
Lucille
wants
runs
a
into
divorce.
George first
Yes.
and says that she wants a real divorce because
Oscar confesses. I'm sorry. George confesses that Oscar did some of the conjugal visits.
Yeah.
Yes, that part.
and that he can't
And
get
he
it up anymore.
The tiger's not in the tank anymore.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
So then she finds Oscar, or ends up running into Oscar, And well, first I think Oscar should get an Oscar was mentioned, which I love.
And the Oscar goes to, or something like that.
She runs into Oscar, and Oscar says that he wants to run away with her, but then she sees that Lucille too branded him with her campaign sticker, which we see that little security camera video of them making out, and she plants a campaign sticker on his butt, and then we see that campaign video a little bit later on as well.
We do see that.
Or not video, security video.
Yeah, and so we do
blood.
Yes. So we do see that Lucille wants to get some revenge on Lucille too, but then after talking, we're going to wrap this up really quickly. We're talking to Tobias, who I love it. She's in a storm looking for in need of a therapist, emotional storm. And then Tobias, the therapist, looking for a storm, looking for Sue Storm.
Best line of the episode.
Love it. Compares her to the Invisible Girl, which I thought was really a brilliant therapist move.
It was unintentional advice. No, he was talking about how he wanted her to play the Invisible Girl, not that he thinks that she's the Invisible Girl. And it was the best advice that I think Tobias has ever given.
Absolutely. So,
you put these force fields up to block people.
I know. He actually sounded like a therapist for the first time in 4 seasons. It's amazing. And it actually convinces her she wants to go back into rehab, and she wants to thank Lucille too for I guess all the help that she's given her into helping her with her rehab, which is weird.
And he says, I don't think we have time for that.
Yeah.
Which is supposed to be what he's there for in the first place. Realizations.
And then they hint at Lucille too, again, disappearing at the very, very end of the episode.
But they go to a shot of the trash cans.
Did you not see the blood on the staircase?
Oh.
Yeah. So that's going to be, that's an interesting little cliffhanger.
That's what I need you for.
So let's move on really quickly because we're going to wrap this up and start the next show. Let's wrap this up with some predictions.
There we go. Well, I just want to say in the scenes from next week with the suitcase, I predicted something that they both had their suitcases there. Something was going to go on.
Okay, you got.
Shout out to myself.
Shout out to yourself. Okay, shout out to Roxy. Got a shout out.
And I'll do that instead of prediction because I'm kind of lacking right now.
Oh, you don't want to go on a roll? Maybe you have a prediction that'll come true.
Give me a minute. I'll think.
Okay,
of something. Then
we're not going to go. All right. You want, I'm going to start it off, man, because I have an idea. Unless you two have something.
Go for it.
You want me to go for it? Okay. You mentioned it very briefly that Lucille was talking about crying, and she talked about a story about hiding under her mom's porch during a thunderstorm and seeing the remnants of her ostrich, and it got cut off ostrich. So she had an ostrich growing up. So I'm starting to think that maybe there's some connection between her and the ostrich farm, and I'm going to say that she's related to Marky Bark's
mom.
Yes, I'm going to say she's related to Marky Bark's mom.
And maybe Marky Bark's mom's actually Lindsay's mom.
Maybe out of this whole thing, Lindsay ends up being related to the Blues after all.
Yeah.
So that's my prediction. There you go.
Okay.
That's a good one.
Yeah. Anybody else?
Well, what if this isn't a prediction, but what if Marky Bark's mom is Lindsay's real mom?
That's what I was.
And she's been with her brother.
That's right. That's what they were saying. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it's a family. It's a little confusing. My
It's not a prediction. I'm just saying.
What if?
Oh, what if?
What if?
Oh, yeah.
That's what we should call them. What ifs? You can't predict anything on the show.
Anybody else with anything, or just me?
No.
No. All right. You're all staying numb. Okay. Thanks a lot, guys. Where can we find you, Roxy?
At Roxy Striar.
And
at Catherine Kelley.
At _Alina23.
And at Nando Vel. Thanks a lot for tuning in. If you're watching us live right now, stay tuned. We're going to do the next episode right now.
From Bing.com, executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.